Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Molten Truth. I'm your host, Zoey Michaels, and as so often, we are just here to have a great time and a great conversation and let you be a fly on the wall. Quick reminder for those who have not tuned in before this to check out our sister podcast, Behind the Diagnosis Famous Lives Untold. It's in its first season. First 5 episodes are out there, so check it out. But today we are here with a fellow author, and I have to tell you, Alan, I'm a little afraid of one of your titles of the book, Peace, Love, and Murder.
Well, it's a fun book.
I was like, very different from my thoughts of peace, love, and little donuts and things like that.
Well, everything's going on at the same time, right?
No, it's definitely a catchy title, without a doubt. I think it's memorable, but when I saw that, I was like, huh, okay. I'm a little afraid.
No, it's a good.
So before we get too deep in, I want to introduce you to our audience. So Alan R. Warren, and Alan, what's your website so people can check out you and your work?
It's pretty simple. It's just Alan R. Warren, and it's spelled ALANR Warren WARREN.com, and that's about it. It's pretty simple. You can also just type my name in, and there's the House of Mystery. I come up on that as well. So.
Very cool. Is that your preferred genre? Is that what you always write, or talk to us about your journey a little bit.
Well, no, actually, I prefer to write. I consider myself more historical.
Yeah.
I get into a time zone because even this Peace, Love, Murder, it was really about 1965 to 1970 in San Francisco and what was going on. So I get really into the whole time period and the setting and what goes on in the city and even the country at times. So everything goes on. So when you read it, you'll get everything from the moon landing to the race riots to the hippie movement, the Haight Ashbury, just all the stuff that was going on. Manson just happened to walk through it and kind of screw things up, so to speak. He sort of, and it just sort of, because what it does is it allows you to understand how he got manipulated and how he got away with what he was doing at the time, because he could only do that with the right setting and the right things going on, if that makes sense. So I had to kind of make sure people read through the time.
Well, that makes sense. It's interesting you mentioned that because it was just maybe in the last month, I stumbled upon an article about, and I forget which actor and actress this was, but there was a family in Hollywood and that moved away from Hollywood to protect their daughter from Manson. And I forget who it was, but I found that fascinating that the parents were really in tune and kind of concerned, and rather than stay there in Hollywood for their careers, they decided to move, I think, to the other side of the country, if I remember right. Or maybe to another
Yeah.
country altogether. It's been a while since I read that article, but
So,
it was
yeah.
a very big move to get her far away from that thing, and ultimately saved her life.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. And the other thing to think about too is at that time, he wasn't the only sort of commune hippie lifestyle group love sort of thing that was going on. There were several. He was one of many. Of course, they eventually did things that made them really stick out, of course. But there were several groups and communes happening, and even there was a couple of the people that were in it that I've interviewed were actually given to him by the parents.
Wow.
So that was not uncommon. But at first I thought, oh, who would do that? And the first two girls I talked to, they were given to the Manson group family by the parents, and they were only 14 and 15 years old at the time. So it seemed to be an acceptable thing or an okay thing, or nothing happened. It just sort of, even Angela Lansbury had her daughter, who was 15, let her party with them for at least a year. So
I
It,
think
it
it
just
might have
just
been
seemed.
Angela Lansbury that I was reading about that ultimately moved them away to another country. I think that may be who I was thinking of.
And it could be. I mean, because she let it run loose for over a year and let her daughter hang and party with the whole group for quite a long time before taking her back, so to speak, or getting her back home. So there's a lot of strange things going on, but that sort of creates the setting. You know, you kind of get, wow, this is what's going on. Wow, this is not unusual. It's not just one, it's several. And actually, several people I talked to that are in the accessory book here has the interviews. There was tons of them that were just, oh, they're taking a a van and they're driving across country and they leave their kids with different groups. And a lot of them they didn't even know.
That is just so funny to me because I'm I was raised in the late 70s, early 80s, as a child. So, just old enough to kind of be aware of the whole hippie movement type of stuff. But I don't think I really connected that movement with being so closely intertwined with that violence.
Oh yeah. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, because there's several things going on at the time, and that's sort of what I think a lot of people kind of don't understand. They just think here's Manson, he's like this strong manipulator, really, super smart and clever, and that he did all this stuff, planned it and did it all and all this. And it was just kind of weird. People had the weird idea. There was a lot of people just doing that lifestyle.
Yeah, I mean, even when we see it, in TV shows or movies, that's definitely not the face that we see that I've ever seen. I think of the TV show This Is Us. I mean, there was some darkness as far as, the repercussions of the war type of stuff, but everything with the hippie part of things was just very light. And yeah, I just don't, it maybe it's time for them to consider painting a more accurate picture.
Well, I think it's such a large picture, and I think that what it is cases like what Charles Manson did, and what he led his followers to do, um, maybe take so much of the spotlight away from the good things too, right? It's just all we know is what gets paid attention to.
Yeah.
So it's a tough one. But there's also a lot of good families that were in the movement and were very happy, and it was all peace, love, and joy, right? So don't get me wrong there.
Yeah, and that's I guess where I was kind of like, okay, was this maybe not as happy, you know, as peaceful as what met the eye? So this is kind of maybe an isolated little black dot on a white map kind of
Well,
thing.
yes, yeah, extreme as it was, there was a lot of controversy because you got to think that um, if you go back to that time zone and you look through the papers and you look through all the even the old shows and stuff that were live, like game shows and stuff, and you look at how people talked and act, there was definitely a divide. There was like the peace, love, hippie, pot, all that sort of stuff movement that was uh, one direction, and then there was kind of like the government direction, like Nixon. There was the war going on in Vietnam. Um, there's this whole anti. It's almost like it's comparable to today's young people being, let's say, called woke, and about certain people not liking it in an older generation because it's so different. It's the same thing. They couldn't understand why uh, people grew their hair long. Why were men growing their hair long? That made no sense. There were so many things that they didn't understand about the youth, and then the youth was totally rebelling against what the older people were doing. So there was a lot of distrust there, and a lot of anger, and it caused different things in different situations.
That's very good points. And I've spoken with other authors. I remember one from back in July. She was writing a little bit about her family, but it was a fictional book with her family as inspiration. But where one cousin was pure military and one cousin was pure hippie. So, I mean, the disparity in that generation, just the extremes. I can't even imagine. I'm so glad I don't live that in that specific time because I don't know what I would think.
Well, you're born in it. You don't really understand it. You're just there, right? And
Mm,
that's how I kind of. I mean, I'm a little older than you, so I sort of I was born in the '60s, so I kind of get a little bit what's going on, but I was a little too young. But I kind of saw what was going on with my older siblings, with the long hair and the piece and Janis Joplin and doing all that sort of stuff, and I was watching them. So I kind of get it, and I kind of understand why the parents were so upset because they grew up where they, you know, respected the older folk and they got a job and went to school, and it was just a different discipline than what the younger people were having. And the younger people were started listening to rock and roll music.
right.
Right? And that was just like it was pure Satan. They were like, "This is oh my god," people were the Rolling Stones, they thought that was the end of the world.
It's true. There was
So,
that viewpoint.
yeah, and when you look at it too, and you go back and you look at a lot of the newspapers and a lot of articles, they were complaining about the same things in the papers that they are today.
True. Very
It's
true.
not any different. It's the same thing. Employment, oil and gas, war, immigration. It's the same fights, race, gay rights. It's just the same thing in a different time with different names, fighting it. And they seem to people seem to keep going through these same battles over and over, and I don't quite understand why.
Yeah, history does have the habit of repeating itself, and people
you,
never
you
seem to
think
learn
you,
from it.
you, you'd think we'd learn, because we see it, and a lot of people. Because the sad thing is, a lot of people get hurt. A lot of people got hurt over the war in Vietnam in the '60s and '70s, and you go through all the bad times, and you hope, okay, it's getting better now, and you go through a better streak for a while, and then all of a sudden it happens again, and when you're older and you see it happening twice, you kind of think, holy cow, we've kind of done this before, and there's no real winner here. A lot of people get hurt on the way. That's all. I don't know. I just,
So true.
it
So
gets
true.
confusing, but that's kind of what I do in a book, not just the Manson book, but almost every book I've ever had published. I've gone for the setting and the time period and what went on. And even when it says peace, love, and murder, the murders that go on, but I don't get into I'm not a detailed person with murders. So you're not going to read about, the blood dripping and all the different gore angles. It doesn't go on forever. I make sure you understand what happened, but I think the emphasis is more on, again, the people, the setting, the atmosphere, where they're at, the timing, who's doing what. I think that's the most important, more
So
than just like talking about murder for 10 times in a row.
true. Like anything, it would get really just old in the first place. Even if it was something nice, you go too much detail.
Yeah, yeah,
But it's
and
more
don't
about the
get there's some
mystery, trying to solve the
yeah,
mystery of it.
exactly, it's their story, because there's a lot of people, there's some great writers that can write some incredible horror and brutal stuff, right? And they do it really well. Uh, I'm just not doing that, that's all. I'm more into the relationships that are going on, because a lot of what Manson did, he did because of something that happened, and it made him react, and then he did something else, and then he sort of had a theme about him that wasn't just straightforward. I'm going to do this. It was always a reaction. So it was more. I think it was more interesting to hear about why he kept on going into these different locations and doing things. So yeah, that's how I handled it, rather than just
Yeah,
the
I get
blood.
that. So I'm curious because as I've been looking kind of through your website. I
Uh-oh.
mean, you've kind of gone into different areas of the world, kind of researching this. So is this something that you've always been interested in, the history and these people who had these kind of serial killer type of things going, or how did you get into this? I guess this interest.
Ooh, I don't know why I got into it. I know that history was always fascinating to me, and I always was into it as a kid. And I think what happened was I was working around, then I got a job producing a radio show and was doing a lot of work that way. And then I had got into doing some of the mystery histories, like JFK and things like that.
Okay, interesting.
And that kind of pulled me in, like these true crime, not so much serial killer sort of things, but more of a like what happened to JFK, what was going on, and a lot of other stories, not just him. So I started going through that, and then one thing led to another, and then I had publishers approach me about writing stories on people like Zodiac Killer. You know, it just kind of leaped over. Not that I was really after that kind of a thing. Um, I think I just love a mystery
Nothing wrong with
and
that.
yeah, something unsolved. And like I said, I'm not really, again, even with Zodiac, when was doing that, it wasn't so much about the details and getting it all into this great narrative. It was more about the stories, and what was really going on, and I don't have, I'm really lucky because I don't feel like I have a viewpoint to try and make it go one way or the other. Because in a lot of it, I don't care. and,
It's nice to
and
be neutral.
because I really don't care. Like, when I go into the Zodiac thing field, or when I was in the JFK group, I interviewed all the people that were totally involved in all the different crimes, or like all the different parts of it, and all the ones that wrote, and all the people that were involved, and they all are so confident of their culprit. Do you know what I mean? This person did it, and they're 100% and all that. And I don't, I don't really care. Like, okay, well, tell me why, and kind of get the evidence and put it all out there, and just display all the evidence and try to make sense of it. And it what doesn't matter to me who Jack the Ripper really is. I don't know if that makes sense. I'm open to anybody. And if they have a lot of ideas and they tell you this whole story and they give you a lot of evidence, that's great. That's cool. Put it all together and I can put it in a book and put all the different views and kind of let the reader kind of understand all the different ideas. Personally, it doesn't matter to me if it's one or the other. I don't seem to have a lot of people really do. Same as the JFK thing. There's a lot of people that are
Theories.
set on what it is, and who did it and when and all that. I'm like, okay, I'm good with any of it, but I don't really have the. So I think it's kind of good. It's a lot more neutral than you'll expect.
Well, I like that because when people have made up their mind about something before they investigate it, that's how innocent people go to jail. I would rather see, let's take it away from the book side of things and that, but I would rather see someone going completely neutral without their mind made up and truly investigate and keep an open mind, but that's
Yeah.
another story.
Oh, yeah. It's a totally different story. But yeah, it's really weird how people get caught up on these things. There's usually more attached to it. You believe someone did it because, and there's usually something else going on in their mind, that they're thinking, something they don't like about them. And I guess I just don't have that kind of spirit about me. I'm just not really, you know, it turns out like it does. I don't,
Yeah, yeah. It just makes you a true investigator rather than just a someone with an
yeah.
agenda.
Yeah, because it really doesn't matter. I mean, I don't know why it matters to some people so much. Because you put together evidence and you put it out there. It really doesn't matter if it's Joe Blow or John Candy. You know what I mean? It can be anybody. You research them and you find out as much as you can and you put it out there, and whoever it is, it is. You want the right person caught if they're still alive and it's still going on. But you know,
Exactly.
if it's a past case like Zodiac or something, it's probably long gone. JFK, it's kind of all done.
Definitely.
It is what it is. It makes like Jack the Ripper. Jack the Ripper, boy, you go into those other groups, they get into some pretty big fights, man. They're calling each other names, and it's just like, oh, it's
And why does it
crazy.
matter? He's long gone.
Yeah, it's long gone. It's done. It's over. And whoever did it is long gone. There's nothing you can do. And it's hard because, back when JFK was going on, or Jack the Ripper, they went in, the police, and they just washed down the crime scene,
Yeah,
right? They throw everything away and wash down the crime scene. So it's not like there's DNA or stuff really left. Not really. People can throw stuff out there, but come on, this is a long time ago, and we don't have anything. There's no witnesses, there's no DNA, there's nothing. It's over. So,
exactly.
it's hard.
And the thing is, while it's wonderful to actually catch someone who really is guilty, and it's good we have certain technologies and things available now, at the same time, I look back further in history at people who admittedly did things that were criminal, right? But then
Yeah.
they changed and they had the ability to change for the better because it wasn't chasing them. I'm not talking about murderers or anything like that, but like take Wyatt Earp for example, right? He got in
Yeah.
trouble. He was going to be hanged, I think, for horse thievery or something, and but he had a chance to do better, and he did.
Yeah, and I think that's great. Again, a lot of people will look back at old people through our history and kind of go, "Oh, they were this or they were that. They did this." And then they hate them all of a sudden. It's like, well, it's such a different time, such a different life. Like you were just talking about, man, just imagine being around in during the 60s as a 20-year-old and what it would be like and what you would be thinking. It's a totally different world they were living in. So it's hard to say how you would manage, you know,
True.
especially in Western days, back with the Wyatt Earps and people carrying guns and shooting and all that stuff. And you got a bath once a month.
That'd be a nightmare for me. I don't think I'd like that at all. I'd have to live
Imagine
near
no
near a lake. I'd be swimming a lot.
you imagine no coffee maker, okay? Like
Oh
no
boy.
coffee maker, no
Well,
television, no radio, no just nothing. You can't just go get an ice cream. Like it's just like you got to think, wow, what was that world like living in? And I'm not putting it down. I'm just saying, but then you have to. That's why the setting and the timing is so important to really understand why people did things.
true.
Because if you look at it from a 2020 lens and you start reading something that happened 100 or 50 years or whatever ago, you kind of get lost, or you kind of hear someone doing something, you go, why would they do that? Or why would they? Because you have no idea what they're living in. When they
Right.
get up in the morning, what did they do? What did they have for breakfast or coffee? Or did they even have running water in their house? Did they have electricity? Did they have, like, there's like so many questions, and it makes a difference in how you live and how you behave and how you interact with people. It was just, that's what I mean. I think it's so important to get that in there in any old story, um, because they could, just like they couldn't understand how we live today.
So true. I mean,
You
there
know,
would definitely be a period of shock and then adjustment, and who knows how long that would take.
could you imagine? You used to dress up. Even when I was a little kid, you had to dress up to go to the doctor, to go to the store, to do anything like that. And now
People
someone,
go in
if they were,
pajamas.
and all of a sudden they just put them to sleep in 62, and then they wake them up now, put them out in the supermarket, and people are walking around in shorts, pajamas. They're looking in this little box, their phone, and they're talking away. And there's, could you imagine? It would be, they'd be, what
Right?
is
So
going on?
true.
And
So
and
true.
it, yeah. So you gotta understand how people are living before you start thinking about why they do things. And then even then, I try not to be judgmental on it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so important to take into consideration the timeline. I'm trying to work on a story and I still have to dust it off and do more work on it. But I have something that I'm planning to do where an Indian from like the 1800s travels forward in time. So the shock, that he's going to experience, but I still have to do more world building where, to set the stage of what he's coming from compared to what he's going to. And you really kind of give me some food for thought about how much more
Yeah.
world building I really need to be doing.
Yeah. Well, the more you do, the better it is. That's all. I mean, you can stop at any level, but I think that if you can just put yourself into that character, as in you're that person, and you pretend, okay, I get up. Where am I living? What am I doing when I get up? Who am I interacting with? What do I have to do to eat? What do I have to do to go to place? Do I work? Is there such a thing? You know what I mean? Like there's so many things. Um, if it's an Indian living in a tent in the 1800s or whatever, how did they build that? How did they become part of that tribe? Um, who are they married to, if they are? Who are their siblings? What did they have to do when they were to become like a warrior, or to become a man in the tribe, or to do whatever they do? Um, where do they go when they're sick? Who's their medicine person? Who tells them what to do? Do they have to go out and hunt animals? Like you really start putting yourself into a person's place in every condition you can think of, and then I think the character grows out of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And at the end of the day, you want a story that people are going to be absorbed by, that they're going to want to go to the next chapter, and they're going to be so sad when they get to the last chapter because now the adventure is over. I
right.
mean, that's
Yeah,
that's the goal.
yeah, because the character is what lives. Remember, the character stays with people, and you relate to them, whether they're, a detective, or whether they're, a mother, just a school teacher, whatever they do, and whatever time they're in, and whatever city they live in. The biggest thing is who they are, and then getting that out to people. And look at people like God, look at the characters like Sherlock Holmes.
Yes.
He's still alive in so many people's. They redo his work. There's another new series that just started with him, and yeah, that's a Guy Ritchie one, and that's on Netflix or Prime, one of the big ones. And there's young Sherlock Holmes
Right.
is, and that's been done 20 times before. But why do they keep doing it? Because it's something about that character that, when people go to England, they go, I have to go look at where he lived, even though he never really lived.
But he's so alive in people's imaginations that he might as well have been.
Right. So character is king, I think, in any story. It's the thing to do. And if you the more you can capture that character, the more relatable points you have to give to someone, and more people that can get interested in some sort of part of that character. Then it doesn't matter what kind of story you're telling so much, because they just want to ride along with the character. That's kind of how I take it in writing. Um, yeah, I even try to look at it that way, even in nonfiction, um, because sometimes I have to fictionalize the characters. And I did
Yes.
that with Leopold and Loeb and some of the others, because you had to take the dialogue that we did have from them, and kind of trying to make them into a person. Otherwise, it becomes like nobody cares.
Right. Well, same
It's
thing
like
when you're
reading.
trying
It's
to
like
give dry information, you're trying to give it some flavor so that people aren't bored reading dry information, but instead have some kind
yeah,
of can imagine a
yeah,
scenario where people are actually living through that scenario and
yeah,
still
yeah.
learning
They are.
from it.
Yeah, they're actually doing it while this is going on. Like even with the moon landings, I mean, something everyone stops because this is going on, or something's going on, and they kind of catch it. I think Mad Men did that really well as a series on TV. And I'm not really a big guy to promote series and stuff like that, but there was a lot of good elements to that. Um, but I think that's it. We've solved the world, solved the problem.
It only took 25 minutes.
Yeah, we've cured everything. Everything's good now. See, isn't that good? Everything's better. Everything's always better with coffee. No, I don't know.
There's a series name right there. Everything's better with coffee. There's probably one out there like that. But yeah, love my coffee, definitely. So on your website, it talks about you being a radio host.
Yes.
And so is
Don't
that
tell
like on
anyone.
an actual radio station or is it more like a podcast type of thing? Tell us about that.
No, I actually worked on radio. I still do.
Okay.
Don't tell anyone.
Too
Yeah, no, I
late.
worked. Yeah, no, actually, what it is, I'll tell you
Mhm.
what happened.
Yeah.
I was producing for a radio show on a radio station, someone else's shows. I was doing other people's shows. So basically, I would be recording, editing, and slipping in the ads and doing all that stuff for people like that were doing shows.
Okay.
And I got to do an interview for someone who couldn't do it. Long story, but I ended up doing this interview, and it went really well. And so then one station said, "Why don't do you ever think about doing your own show?" And I said, "No." And then anyway, they talked me into doing one. I was on at like 6 in the morning on Saturday, so
Oof.
nobody listened. That's okay, but nobody listened. But it gave me a lot of practice, and so I ended up doing that, and then I went to another show, and then I started my own, which was the House of Mystery, and Seattle station picked it up, real radio station, and Phoenix, Salt Lake, a couple other stations, and the big station was LA, KCAA in LA, which is an NBC affiliate, and they bought my show,
That's
and then I broadcast
amazing.
for them for 15 years now, and
That
I
would be
still do.
such a sweet gig.
No,
You
no,
don't think
you
so?
know, no, I wanted to do it because I didn't want to just do a podcast, though I do. You know what I mean? I wanted someone to make sure they told me I was terrible, you know? I know because like in essence right now you do your show, you could sit down, you can interview, you can decide your own show, you can record it, put it out on a lot of platforms,
Hmm.
and there's nobody there to really say anything to you.
True.
When you work for a company, a show or a station, that's one thing. They do give you feedback and all that. But then when you work for a network, then all of a sudden you get them coming back and say, listen, this doesn't work, that doesn't work, or we like this or we don't like that. Like you get a lot of stuff and
True.
a lot of good stuff. So I want it to be challenged, I guess. And so that I wanted someone to say, listen, you know, you're a loser. And it works in a way because then you fight back and you get better and better. And here I am because I'm just a little guy from Canada, and I all of a sudden I'm doing LA, and we were the number 3 show.
Amazing.
Yeah, so I'm just like I'm blown away. Well, we got to interview James Comey, the FBI director. Geez, Nancy Grace a couple of times, and you name it. We've F. Lee Bailey. Geez, even the oh God, we just it's been incredible. We've been real fortunate. It's gone really well. There's hard shows too, and good shows, bad shows, but we've got 2,500 interviews now up.
It's
So
amazing.
yeah, because they've rebranded to podcast too after it airs comes out. So it's we got a lot of shows, and I'm really happy with it now because I'm just a guy, from Canada.
Nothing wrong with
You
that.
know, no, but it's a big deal if you think about you come out of nowhere and do it. You know what I'm saying? It was
I know.
just
I
just
get you. I get you.
right place, right time, and working. And I think it was something I'd never thought I'd ever see happen. In fact, I never did. I never ever thought this would happen. And so it's just been incredible. I can't complain.
That is
And
amazing.
yeah, and then I was just the producer, executive producer for that Gacy miniseries, which is on Netflix and Prime and all that right now. So the filmmaker John Borowski and stuff. So that these are things you would have never. If you told me this 20 years ago, I would have said, "Yeah, right."
Life does have a way of surprising you, sometimes in a very good way.
Yeah, I'm a guy that started work when I was a kid at White Spot. You know what I mean? The restaurant, and just I never saw it coming. So it's a good thing. What it does is it shows you that you can just work and it can happen. You just kind of keep doing it and learn and keep going. All of a sudden, I'm there, and it's a good thing too
Nice.
because we do pretty good, and we're not political. Do you know what I mean? We're not a
That's
show on
good.
politics because
Good.
politics right now is really where everything is at. You
Yeah.
know, if you're like Joe Rogan and all that, I mean, those shows are all doing 10 times what we are. And that's fine, but I couldn't
Well, I'm
do that.
sure.
I just
No,
I
I
couldn't
find it
imagine being that
exhausting.
angry 5 days a week. Yeah.
Yes,
Could you imagine 5
exactly.
days a week just complaining and complaining about whatever,
I can't
every day
imagine
it's something
five
new.
minutes.
Yeah,
Forget
it's just
5 days.
it's too much. It's
Oh
too much,
God.
and I was around in the 60s and 70s and the 70s and even the 80s. Things were just as bad or worse then in a
Hmm.
lot of
Yeah.
ways.
I just feel like it was more
War-wise,
low key.
finance-wise.
Yeah. It was
We
there, but
didn't
it was
get we
more
didn't hear about
background
it.
noise. Yeah.
Yeah,
It was
because
like
you
a
didn't
low
hear about it.
hum,
We
and
only
now it's
had
like shouting in
we
your
didn't have we had
face.
local TV. Yeah. Well, because you can't turn on the TV or you can't turn on the internet. Go on social media and there's all posts. Everyone's trying to make money posting about whoever's doing what to whoever, and it's all political, and it's kind of like, just so boring. But things were just as bad in a different way. Food prices were terrible, inflation was bad, job numbers were bad I remember in the 70s. 19 I remember my dad. I was maybe not even, yeah, I wasn't even 20, and I was got my own place. And I remember him saying to me in 1980, saying, "You kids today, you'll never own a home the way things are. You know why? Because and he gave me all this lecture. And back then, it was, yeah, it's true. He made sense because I was making $1.75 an hour, something like that. And interest rates were 18% on a home. Think about that.
True.
And
Things
so
changed extreme.
I was, yeah. And then there was like, you kids will never own anything and all that. And I hear the same thing today. And I'm thinking, you know what? People might come out with these things, but when you really, really calm down and just look at it, you work and it just takes time, 20 years, 30 years, and it all comes together. All of a sudden you're old and you have a
Right.
house. I don't know. We just adjust to whatever's going on. I mean, people like, on I don't know. I think because I've been through it before and I saw how it seemed it was really bad and dark. And you're right. You could turn it out so much easier then because you could just hang out with your friends, or you can go out to the store, or you can go out camping, or you can go whatever, and you didn't
We were too
hear
busy
it.
watching MTV to care about the news.
Right. Yeah. Did you see the Madonna video? Oh my God. She rolled around. Like, and that was, well, that's true, right? Isn't that it?
Huh?
Or Def
Oh
Leppard or whoever, and you're like, oh my God, right? And that's all we did, and that
yeah.
was fine. You go to school and everything else, but that was, and we didn't have all the other stuff because they didn't talk about it, and we didn't have social media. And now social media has turned into that, and it's terrible because there's so much good about social media, don't you think?
True.
What a great tool. There's so many advantages. You can connect with people across the world. You can do so many things we couldn't do before. You can find out a lot of information. You could read books. You can do so much. But so there's really good stuff to it. It's just everyone's just wanting to be nasty. But I have
Yeah.
faith. In 20 years from now, um, they'll be doing the same thing, but for something different and different names, but the same sort of stuff will keep going.
Yeah. That pendulum keeps swinging back and forth. Good,
Yeah, and it'll be
bad,
complaining about whatever,
good, bad.
yeah, yeah, and it's the same thing, it's just, God, I sound corny, but I always say to people, I should look at the good stuff. You get up and today,
Hmm.
it's sunny, it's a great day. I have two great dogs. I can go out for a walk, and then I can go to the store. I can go to a Starbucks if I want to, or Tim's, whatever you're into. I can go buy anything I want at any time. You know what I mean? We've got Netflix, we've got all these things. You can
True.
have a car, there is a lot of good stuff. We got to look at our good stuff, you
True.
know? I
Yeah.
sound
Back in the
corny, but
80s, we were
it's
just barely start having that VCR and videos, beta and
yeah.
VHS, and now we can download. We can
Oh,
take it with us around the world and all kinds of
maybe
stuff.
you'd have to go to a store and you'd rent a VCR player.
Yes. Yes, been there, done that.
and get a couple of tapes and then take it home, watch it, and then return it all. Please be kind and rewind and all that.
I was just thinking,
Yeah,
yes.
you just think about how much we've got good around us, and I'd rather look at positives than negatives.
Yeah,
Personally, I think that we
feels
can
healthier that way.
get
If you
more.
get caught up in the negative,
Yeah, we get more accomplished.
it literally physically affects you.
Yeah, it's depressing. It's depressing. If everything's so bad and the world's flat, then stay home.
Right. That's a whole other conversation.
That's a whole other
We're getting ready
conversation.
to,
Yeah, just stay home and
yeah,
yeah,
we're getting ready to wind up. Our time has flown by like quick, which was, that's what we were hoping for. A great conversation. And I think you and I thoroughly enjoyed it. um,
yeah. It's always good
so
to talk.
our last guest left. Let's try that again. Our last guest left the question for you: what is your favorite comfort food? If you're having a really bad day, what would make you feel better?
Boy, what would it be? Hmm. Hmm. Um. Geez, I don't know what to say. How about a bowl of ice cream? Is that
Always a
corny?
winner. Do you have a favorite flavor?
Do you know strawberry's good, and but I think vanilla is really really good. Or if there's some really weird flavor, like when they've got like banana with strawberry quirls and
Mm,
blackberries. So when they have a really unusual flavor, I usually
yeah,
like it. I usually when you going out and you see the different types, and there's like a really weird kind of corny flavor with a couple of things. I usually order that. I'm that guy
yeah,
that
nothing wrong
picks
with
the
that.
coconut, orange, or whatever. They have like some flavor that isn't just vanilla or chocolate. And I always like lots of stuff in it. So
Yeah,
there you go.
very cool. There you go. So, do you have a question for our next guest?
Oh, well, with whatever craft they do, write, art, sing, whatever it is that they do, um, do they have to be in a certain mood in order to do it? Does that sound okay?
Yep, I'm just getting it written down, but I like the question. Because,
Yeah,
yeah,
like
sometimes
does
you
it
do
does
have
it
to be in a
matter?
certain zone.
Yeah. Well, you see, I say that because I've talked to people, some people, and I know a guy that he writes for newspapers and all that stuff, and he's written tons and tons of articles, like hundreds, and he can just sit there and write. It doesn't matter. His house can be on fire, and he can just turn it on and just
Amazing.
just be very lyrical. And I just like go, wow, I don't know how you can do that. So sometimes there's people that it doesn't matter. The house is on fire and they're sitting there writing, and it's fine. And or for me, if I'm in a bad mood, it just doesn't work. You know,
Yeah.
or something's going
Which,
on, or you hear bad news, and you're in a, you know,
yeah. Which brings me back to your radio show because if you're on a set schedule where you have to perform and you're not in that zone or that mood, how do you work around that?
it's the hardest thing to do. It is. If I when I'm having bad, it was terrible, and I think a lot of people don't realize that when they see people that I could imagine. I'm just a little guy, radio guy. Can you imagine being like a TV or some sort of celebrity,
Mm-mm.
and you have to go to work 5 days a week, and you're on camera, and people are outside, and they film you coming and going everywhere, and you might not look good, you might not feel good, you might be off that day, you got some bad, your cat died, or anything, you're fighting with your boyfriend, who knows, and you still have to go there and start your show and do it your hour or whatever and turn it on, and that's a really hard thing to do. So I couldn't imagine doing it where people are watching you and then commenting, did you see the tie he was wearing?
right?
Well, you know what I mean? Because
I do.
sometimes you're just not into it. For
Yep.
me, the best thing for me is walking my dogs, like just getting out of the house and going down through. Um, I'm in kind of a more rural section, and I can just walk the dogs and come back and listen to music,
Nice.
inspiring music. You know what I mean? Like I have to. It's usually '80s music, and it's usually new wave.
Nothing.
For me,
Yeah, I can get on
you
board
know,
with that.
it has to be like
But
doesn't matter. It's '90s Depeche Mode, OMD, even
good
Madonna,
stuff.
whatever. Anything Thompson Twins, all that '80s stuff because it inspires me. It gives me. There's kind of an anger to it, but it's kind of happy. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of a
I
I
do.
don't know. So
Yeah.
that's what I do. If I need to get juiced up and I'm having bad times, I need to go out with my dogs and listen to New Order or something.
Yeah.
It's that's
We
simple.
all have our tricks that help us through, and sometimes it is hard to
Yeah,
hold yourself together. I had to record an episode right after my dog died, and that about killed me, but I got through it, and probably along the same lines with the music and other tricks. But yeah,
yeah. No, no, I'm the same way. Yeah, one of my dogs had died, and actually on the launch of this last book of the Peace, Love, Murders, it was the same. It was the day before. I don't,
that's so rough.
it's the toughest thing. How do you do that? Because it's on your mind, it's in your heart, and
Exactly.
you're
Trying to keep
supposed
a
to,
straight face and appear
yeah,
happy when you're not.
yeah, and you're kind of like, and people ask you questions, and you're like grumpy.
True.
Well, it's just, yeah. So I ended up canceling a lot of the beginning launch because of that.
Yeah. Well,
I
it's
think I
better to
did
put
one
that
or two
best foot
shows.
forward, even if it's delayed, than to have a really bad episode because you're not in a good spot. So
Yeah,
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 certainly
totally.
wouldn't blame anyone for that.
No, it's one of those things you have to do. But yeah, you get used to it, how to try to liven yourself up the best you can, and that's all you can do.
Absolutely. One last question, then we'll tie this up. But um, does your position as a radio show host, does that afford you a good amount of time for your writing, or is it like a regular full time job, and then you're still writing kind of in your off hours?
They're both full time.
Okay.
I go
All right.
solid. I'm serious. I'm up at 6 and and I try to turn everything off between 8 and 9 p.m. So I go a good about 12, 13 hours every day. And so it's between recording, editing, setting up interviews, talking to people, working with people, doing interviews or writing or getting information. It seems to be all day, every day. I don't get much time off. I really don't. But
Well, you
I don't
sound like
really
you
have
love
anything.
what you do.
I I do for the most part. I do. I really do. Except sometimes it's tiring, But um, I think it's all really good, and I'm really lucky. I'm really fortunate to be doing what I do and doing okay at it. So I think that I just look at it that way.
That's really
So I'm just happy.
excellent.
That's all you can do. Be happy and move forward, and hopefully it works out.
That is just the perfect note to end on. I really appreciate you coming today. Please, folks, be sure to check out Alan's website. Again, alanrwarren.com. Check out his books and his radio show. And I'm sure he'd love to know what you think. So be sure if you read his books to drop a review because we really thrive on those things. But Alan, thank you for coming.
Oh, of course, it's a pleasure. Always good to talk to people. Always.